Welcome to today's presentation, Niagara Movement and the NAACP, presented by the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum, whose mission is to honor anti-slavery abolitionists, their work to end slavery and the legacy of that struggle, and strive to complete the second and ongoing abolition, the moral conviction to end racism. In contrast to the ideology of Booker T. Washington, who believed that Black Americans should uplift themselves by gaining technical and industrial skills like farming and carpentry, intellectual Black scholars like W.E.B. DuBois and William Monroe Trotter believed that the advancement of Black Americans would come only through the securing of their civil rights through legal and political means. In 1905, a group of like-minded Black intellectuals assembled together in Niagara Falls, Canada, to discuss the need to fight for civil and political rights for Black Americans. This would be the establishing meeting of what would be called the Niagara Movement. DuBois, who was a professor at the time, and Trotter, who founded the newspaper The Boston Guardian, made the call to gather together 29 men from 14 different states at Niagara in Ontario from July 11th through the 14th in 1905. At this meeting, the Niagara Movement produced the Declaration of Principles, which demonstrated their commitment to fighting for political and civil rights for Black Americans. In the Declaration, they assert a list of demands and grievances which they seek to bring to the attention of the public. Among these were suffrage and the right of Black men to vote, the right to civil liberty, which encompasses being treated equally in the public spaces. They also demanded economic freedom and an end to the peonage and virtual slavery that many Black Americans were trapped in the South. They also asserted the right to a basic education, better high school facilities, and technical colleges, especially in the South. They highlight the discrimination they face in the courts, demanding an end to the convict lease system, demanding equal representation of racists and on juries, and for equal punishments for the same crimes, regardless of race. These are only a few of the many grievances they list and demands that they asserted that they would be fighting for. In total, they summarize their movement as being an example of how, quote, "We refuse to allow the impression to remain that the Black American ascends to inferiority, is submissive under oppression and apologetic before insults. Through hopelessness we may submit, but the voice of protest of 10 million Americans must never cease to assail the ears of their fellows, so long as America is unjust," end quote. And, quote, "Of the above grievances, we do not hesitate to complain, and to complain loudly and insistently. To ignore, overlook, or apologize for these wrongs is to prove ourselves unworthy of freedom," end quote. Though the Niagara Movement was successful in some of its lobbying to desegregate public spaces, it never acquired national momentum. They were limited financially and faced many opposition from prominent individuals like Washington, who thought that such a movement demanding civil and political equality could potentially harm the struggle of Black Americans. After the Niagara Movement fizzled off in 1908, holding its final meeting in that year and formally disbanding by 1911, the NAACP succeeded it. In February of 1909, the NAACP was born in New York City. Its founding was prompted by the race riots of 1908 in Illinois and the increasing awareness of the increasing rate of lynchings in the South. Many of the Niagara Movement's central members, like W.E.B. DuBois, would go on to play prominent roles in the NAACP. In total, 7 members of the Niagara Movement joined the board of directors of the NAACP. Among its prominent members, the NAACP boasted the participation of social activists like Ida B. Wells, Thurgood Marshall, and Mary White Ovington. The NAACP was committed to, quote, "promote equality of rights and eradicate caste or race prejudice among citizens of the United States, to advance the interests of colored citizens, to secure for them impartial suffrage, and to increase their opportunities for securing justice in the courts, education for their children, employment according to their ability, and complete equality before the law," as stated in its association charter of 1911. To achieve the equality of rights, the NAACP decided to dedicate itself to fighting segregation and discrimination in the courts. They set about lobbying and litigating to press for change. This differed from the Niagara movement's more aggressive social policy mentality. Additionally, in contrast to the Niagara movement, the NAACP was founded by both Black and white Americans, with 4 of its founders being white Americans, in contrast to the all-Black founders of the Niagara movement. Therefore, it was that on February 12, 1909, coinciding with Lincoln's 100th birthday, a group of white and Black civil rights activists met in New York City to discuss strategies to tackle segregation and discrimination in the U.S. This meeting is often attributed as the organization's founding date. Based in New York City, the NAACP focused on using litigation to secure voting rights for Blacks in the South, where Jim Crow laws had made it near impossible for Black citizens to vote. The organization would soon spread across the country, establishing chapters all across the U.S., growing to have 50 branches and 6,000 members by 1914 alone. Among its many achievements, the NAACP would go on to successfully challenge Woodrow Wilson's exclusion of the Black Americans from fighting in World War I. It helped win a Supreme Court case against grandfather clauses in Oklahoma, which disenfranchised Black Americans whose grandparents had not voted in previous elections. It persuaded the Supreme Court to rule that segregation of residential spaces by state and local governments was unconstitutional in Buchanan v. Warley. It helped provide legal defense for the Scottsboro Boys, and it played a pivotal role in the decision that ended state-sponsored segregation in public education in Brown v. Board of Education. These are only a few of the many victories that the NAACP helped achieve in the 20th century, and in a time where to defend the rights of Black Americans was to put oneself in harm's way. From the Niagara movement to the NAACP, the quest to defend the rights of all Americans, regardless of race, to enjoy the full civil and political liberties of their country, was fought by brave individuals who believed that the struggle was more easily won when they acted together. Their conjoined efforts of Black and white culminated in the NAACP, one of the most important civil rights organizations in American history. Thank you for watching today's presentation. Please help us by completing a brief survey at the link on your screen and also in the video description. Your feedback will help NAACP receive funding and help plan future projects. Additionally, please contact NAACP with any questions or comments, or if you're interested in learning more about the organization. Don't forget to give us a follow on social media, and we hope to see you at our next presentation. Thank you.